The meeting with Raymond Cole, Chief Risk Officer of First Continental Bank, lasts 4 minutes before Cole stops Marcus mid-sentence, picks up his desk phone, and calls his head of cybersecurity into the room. The 2-page brief has done its job. Cole has spent the morning verifying, through internal records, that the transaction map Marcus sent is accurate. First Continental's routing infrastructure was used. The money moved through their systems. Nobody at First Continental caught it. Nobody at any of the 42 other institutions caught it. One 21-year-old caught it, 14 months after the fact, with a routing error and 72 hours of obsessive work. Cole does not ask how Marcus accessed the data. He asks one question: does Sentinel catch this in real time? Marcus places a USB drive on the desk. Live demo, he says. Your systems, right now. The head of cybersecurity runs the demo for 40 minutes while Cole watches. Sentinel flags 7 anomalous patterns in First Continental's live transaction flow, none of them phantom, all of them previously undetected irregularities that the internal team immediately recognizes as genuine concerns. Cole looks at Marcus. How much do you need to get started? Marcus says, $180,000 for the first deployment contract. Cole says, done. He extends his hand. Marcus shakes it. Ghost Shield Incorporated is founded that afternoon. Marcus founds Ghost Shield Incorporated with the $180,000 First Continental contract as seed funding. The first office is a 2-room suite in Oakland, deliberately Oakland, not San Francisco, because Oakland is where he is from and because the rent is lower and the money belongs in the product. He hires 3 engineers from his Berkeley network, all of them people who said yes without asking about equity first. His sister Linda leaves her paralegal job to run operations, a decision she makes in one phone call, on the condition that Marcus never again goes 72 hours without sleeping. He agrees. He breaks the agreement twice in the first 6 months. She does not fire him. The first thing Marcus puts on the wall of the Ghost Shield office is not the First Continental contract. It is the routing error. The original terminal output from 2:17 a.m., the wrong address, the mistyped variable, the mistake that opened the door. Framed. Under it, in marker on the wall, every vulnerability begins with something someone didn't think mattered. His team reads it on their first day. They understand immediately what kind of company they have joined. 10 months after founding Ghost Shield, Bloomberg runs a profile. The 22-year-old who found the hack nobody else could. It is accurate, thorough, and reaches exactly the audience Marcus needs it to reach: risk officers, CISOs, and compliance heads at major financial institutions across the United States and Europe. 6 new contracts follow within 60 days. Ghost Shield's annual recurring revenue crosses $2 million. Marcus is 22 years old and has not slept a full 8 hours in 14 months. But the article also reaches someone else. Patrick Dreyer is the founder of CyberVault Technologies, a 14-year-old enterprise security firm with $800 million in annual revenue and a client list that overlaps uncomfortably with Ghost Shield's new prospects. Dreyer reads the Bloomberg profile on a Thursday morning and calls his legal team the same day. Not because Marcus has done anything wrong. Because Marcus is doing something right, in a market that CyberVault has owned for a decade, and Dreyer has decided that the most efficient way to address this is not competition. It is elimination. CyberVault Technologies files a $200 million lawsuit against Ghost Shield Incorporated. The allegations: intellectual property theft, misappropriation of trade secrets, and unfair business practices. The claims are constructed with enough technical language to sound credible to anyone who does not examine them closely. CyberVault's theory is that Sentinel's architecture was derived from proprietary CyberVault research that postdates Sentinel's patent filing by 11 months, a fact that Marcus's lawyers will later describe as CyberVault's single most significant miscalculation. The lawsuit lands on a Monday. Ghost Shield's 2 largest prospective clients put contract negotiations on hold pending resolution. Marcus calls Linda. She picks up before it rings twice. He says, they filed. She says, I know. I've been reading it for an hour. Marcus, their research is dated after your patent. He says, I know. She says, so they know they're going to lose. He says, they don't need to win. They need to slow us down long enough for us to run out of money. Silence. Then Linda, then we don't run out of money. She hangs up. Within 24 hours she has contacted 3 litigation finance firms and the Stanford Law Clinic. Within 48 hours, Ghost Shield has a defense team. Marcus goes back to writing code. The lawsuit is Linda's problem now. Professor Alicia Reyes runs the Stanford Law Clinic's technology IP program and has spent 18 years watching large companies use litigation as a competitive weapon against small ones. She agrees to take Ghost Shield's case the same week Linda calls, not because it is financially advantageous, but because the timeline discrepancy is so obvious that losing would require the court to actively ignore evidence. The defense strategy is straightforward. Sentinel's patent precedes CyberVault's research by 11 months. The architecture is demonstrably original. Every timestamp is verified. Every source document is authenticated. CyberVault has filed a lawsuit with no viable claim. The only question is how long the process takes. Marcus meets Professor Reyes once, at the beginning. She asks him one question: is there anything in your work history that CyberVault can point to as evidence of access to their proprietary systems? He says, no, She says, "Can you prove that?" He says, "I can prove everything." She says, "Good. Then this case has one outcome. The only variable is timing." Marcus says, "How long?" She says, 18 months at most. Probably less. He nods. He goes back to Oakland. He builds Ghost Shield for 18 months as though the lawsuit does not exist. Because in every way that matters to the company's future, it doesn't. While the lawsuit is pending, Marcus is invited to speak at RSA Conference, the largest cybersecurity gathering in the world. 12,000 attendees. The speech runs 22 minutes. He does not mention CyberVault. He does not mention the lawsuit. He speaks only about Phantom, Sentinel, and the specific class of financial infrastructure vulnerabilities that neither has been publicly discussed at this scale before. The response is not polite applause. It is 4 minutes of sustained standing ovation from an audience of 12,000 security professionals who have spent their careers trying to identify and patch exactly the class of vulnerabilities Marcus has just described in forensic detail. After the speech, 3 Fortune 500 CISOs approach Marcus in the hallway before he reaches the exit. All 3 ask for contracts. 2 of them are CyberVault clients. Marcus takes business cards. He calls Linda from the parking garage. He says, 3 inbounds. 2 are CyberVault accounts. Linda says, "You gave the speech of your life in the middle of a $200 million lawsuit and came out with clients." He says, "Alicia said the lawsuit doesn't exist. I believed her." Linda laughs. It is the first time she has laughed in 16 months. The federal court grants Ghost Shield's motion for summary judgment 18 months after the lawsuit was filed. The ruling, CyberVault's claims have no material basis. The court awards Ghost Shield $1.2 million in legal costs. CyberVault issues a single-sentence press release. Ghost Shield issues none. Marcus sends 1 email to his team, which contains 3 words, "Back to work." Patrick Dreyer resigns as CyberVault CEO 6 weeks after the ruling, citing personal reasons. CyberVault's 2 largest clients, both of whom were in contract negotiations with Ghost Shield when the lawsuit was filed, sign with Ghost Shield within 90 days of the judgment. The strategy of elimination through litigation has produced its precise opposite. Ghost Shield is larger, better known, and better capitalized than it was the day the lawsuit arrived. Marcus frames the summary judgment ruling and hangs it beside the routing error. Linda asks him why. He says, "Same lesson. The things people use to stop you become the map of what they're afraid of." Ghost Shield closes a $1.1 billion Series B 6 months after the summary judgment. The valuation, $4.2 billion. Marcus Yao is 24 years old and the founder of a cybersecurity unicorn that protects the financial infrastructure of 31 institutions across 9 countries. Horizon Ventures leads the round. The lead partner, Carol Briggs, has backed 3 unicorns in 12 years. She says later that Ghost Shield is the only investment she has made where the founder's most important qualification was not a resume or a reference. It was a 72-hour mapping session conducted at 2 a.m. in a university computer lab. The day the Series B closes, Marcus does one thing before anything else. He calls Raymond Cole, the First Continental CRO, who shook his hand and said, "Done," when the entire market was saying no. Cole picks up. Marcus says, "We closed the B. I wanted you to know first." Cole says, "I never doubted it for a minute." This is not entirely true. But it is exactly the right thing to say. Marcus knows it. Cole knows it. They both laugh. And then Marcus calls his mother. She has been waiting for this call for 3 years. Apex Global Security, the largest enterprise cybersecurity firm in the world, approaches Ghost Shield with an acquisition offer of $3.2 billion. The offer includes a term Marcus negotiates himself, without prompting, the Ghost Shield Scholarship Fund, seeded with $256 million, providing full university funding for first-generation technology students from underrepresented communities. The fund is non-negotiable. Apex accepts. On the day the deal closes, Marcus flies to Oakland for 1 day before the transition begins. He visits his mother. He walks through the old neighborhood. He stops outside the community center where he first used a computer that didn't belong to his family. Then, before he boards the flight back, he does something that nobody from Apex or the press or his investors knows about until much later. He walks into the Oakland Police Department and hands over a complete, documented intelligence package, the full Phantom network map, every shell company, every routing pathway, and the identities of the 7 principal operators of the Ghost network, information he has held for 3 years, verified and updated over that period, waiting until Ghost Shield was strong enough that delivering it could not be used against him. The case that follows results in 6 arrests across 4 countries. Marcus is never named publicly. He requested this. The condition was honored. With the Apex deal closed, Marcus does 2 things. He buys his mother's house, not as a gesture but because she has been renting it for 22 years and the owner's family is selling and he is not going to let her lose it. He pays cash. He does not tell her in advance. She finds out when the solicitor calls to tell her the mortgage is clear. She calls Marcus. He says, "I've been owing you that since the routing assignment." She says, "You don't owe me anything." He says, "Mum, take the house." She does. The Ghost Shield Foundation launches its first scholarship cohort the same month. 48 students from under-resourced communities, full funding, mentorship from the Ghost Shield engineering team. Marcus speaks to the scholars at their first meeting. He does not give them a speech about success. He tells them about the routing error, about the 72 hours, about the 11 rejections and the $200 million lawsuit and the woman at the compliance desk who told him to leave before she called security. He tells them all of it. Then he says, the system will tell you your credentials are insufficient. The system will tell you your timing is wrong. The system will tell you that the thing you found cannot possibly be what you think it is. The system is not always right. The routing error is the beginning. What you do after the routing error, that is the whole story. 4 years after a routing error in a Berkeley lab, Ghost Shield's SENTINEL software protects the financial infrastructure of 61 institutions across 17 countries. It has flagged and intercepted over $23 billion in attempted fraud, not all of it Phantom's architecture, though Phantom's descendants appear in the data twice, both times stopped before a single dollar moves. Marcus Yao is 25 years old. He runs Ghost Shield's technology division within Apex, holds 4 patents, and has been asked twice to join the board of the Financial Stability Oversight Council. He has said no twice. He says he is still a builder, not a regulator, and that the distinction matters. The routing error terminal output still hangs in his office. Not the Oakland one. He has moved 3 times since then. But wherever the office is, the frame is on the wall. A reporter once asked him why he keeps it. He said, because every person who walks into this office needs to understand that the thing that found Phantom was a mistake. The thing that stopped it was a decision. Mistakes happen to everyone. Decisions are made. I want everyone who works here to know the difference, and to know which one of the two actually matters. Linda Yao has been present at every critical moment of Ghost Shield's history. She was the voice on the phone at 11 p.m. when Marcus called from Berkeley not knowing what to do. She was the one who found the litigation finance firm. She ran operations during the lawsuit without salary for 6 months because the money was needed elsewhere and she had decided Ghost Shield was going to survive. At Ghost Shield's 4th-year anniversary event, Marcus gives a short address. He credits his engineers, his investors, his legal team. And then he says his sister's name. He says, Linda told me to document everything on the night I found Phantom. She told me to find the person who benefits from admitting the problem. She told me the lawsuit doesn't run out of money if we don't let it. Every turning point in this company's history has her fingerprints on it. Ghost Shield exists in its current form because of Linda Yao. I need everyone in this room to know that. Linda, at the back of the room, looks at the floor. She does not speak for the rest of the evening. She has never needed the credit. She needed the company to survive. It did. That was always enough. At 4:47 a.m. on a Thursday, Ghost Shield's monitoring system flags an anomaly. It does not match Phantom's original signature. It is different, evolved, adapted, the work of someone who studied the original architecture and built something new from its bones. Ghost Shield's overnight analyst flags it as a potential Phantom descendant and escalates immediately. Marcus is called at 5 a.m. He is in the office by 5:30. He looks at the data for 11 minutes. He says, map everything. Full team at 7. He picks up a marker. He goes to the whiteboard. It is 5:41 a.m. and the largest financial network in the monitoring system is at risk and Marcus Yao is doing the thing he has been built. By every mistake, every rejection, every lawsuit, every routing error, to do, staying, mapping, building. Some people find the threat and call for help. Marcus Yao finds the threat and becomes the help. He always has. He always will. It is 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. The monitoring system hums. The city outside is dark. The screens glow blue-white. And somewhere in the network, in the routing tables and transaction logs and the architecture of financial systems that move the world's money, a pattern is forming that should not be there. Ghost Shield sees it. Ghost Shield always sees it now. Because one night at the same hour, a 21-year-old made a mistake that opened a door he was not supposed to find, and instead of closing it, he stayed, mapped it, built something, and turned the accident that could have ruined him into the foundation of something the world genuinely needed. The routing error is still on the wall. The timestamp still reads 2:17 a.m. And every night that Ghost Shield software runs, in 61 institutions, across 17 countries, watching the invisible highways that carry the world's wealth, it runs because of a mistyped variable on a Tuesday night in a Berkeley lab, and the decision a 21-year-old made in the 30 seconds after he understood what he was looking at. He stayed. That was the whole decision. He stayed. Marcus Yao made a routing error at 2 a.m. and accidentally found a $4.7 billion live bank heist. He could have closed the window. He could have called the police. Instead, he spent 72 hours mapping a criminal empire and built software to stop the next one. His story isn't rare. It's just rarely told honestly. If this story made you think differently about power, ambition, and how success really works, then you belong here. Subscribe to the channel. Because we don't just tell stories of people who rise fast. We reveal what it actually took to get there, what they risked to stay there, and what the world looked like before anyone believed they could. This is the Dawn Film Vault. We don't just tell the story. We tell the truth of it. See you in the next one.